All right, all my Econ Avenger fans out there, today we're going to get our shift together. Oh, we're going to talk about a lot of good shift. Not what you're thinking, get your minds out of the gutter. We're going to be talking about shifts of the production possibilities frontier. And we're going to also look later on at the shifts of demand and supply curves. So much shift, we're not going to know what to do. All right, because the shift is going to hit the fan right now, baby. Okay, here's the agenda. We're going to talk about a PPF before the shift happens. We're going to look at what happens after shift happens. We're going to look at what increases in a production possibilities frontier are and what are the causes that can do that. We're going to look at decreases. We're going to get our shift together today. We're going to look at decreases or what can cause it to shift to the left. Then we're going to investigate what will happen if one or the other outcomes happen, or one or the other factors that we have on either side of the products or goods or services, if one of them happens to shift and not the other one. So one might lose their shift, who knows? One might gain some shift in the process. All right, here we go. All right, you ready? Let's look at beforehand. I'll get over on this way. So beforehand, a curve just looks like this, as you see. You got the two possibilities. You got guns, you got butter, and you got all these arrays of points on the curve, which means they're efficient. That's the maximum amount, if it's efficient, of what you can make of guns or butter in this particular case. All right, so we're going to see now, hey, look at this. This curve, original one is right here of guns and butter, but all of a sudden, there's an increase in the curve, which shifts it to the right. So they are synonymous. They both go together, whether it's production possibilities, frontier curves, or demand and supply curves, as you're going to see the next unit. Anytime you see increase of a curve, it always means shift to the right. Okay, so notice that more of both products can be produced because of this curve shifting to the right. All right, you see, there it goes, away from the origin. So what could cause that? In this particular case of guns or butter, well, in general, the first thing you would probably respond to if you see it again on a test or on a quiz, the old-fashioned technology. When in doubt, go with technology, but that is true. Whether it's guns or butter or anything, our society has been able to produce a lot more of stuff just in the past 20, 30 years, capitalizing on technological innovations. Increases in capital resources, that's right. So in this deal with guns or butter, let's just say the resources, what we had more workers. Let's say that we found more iron ore, or we had better cropland for both. Simultaneously, you could see that there's a shift in increase in both of them. Increases in capital, kind of the same thing, more educated society. Remember we talked about human capital. And ideal weather is another blanket statement that would be good in general for both guns or butter. All right. So let's see, now we got a decrease in the curve. Well, look, if you notice, it shifts to the left. So as you would see, or as you're going to recognize in any particular concept, supply and demand, a decrease is always going to shift the curve to the left. So now something happens where less is produced, okay, of both goods. So the curve again shifted to the left. So what could happen in general in that deal? Well, a decrease in the resources and capital. So we could have some type of famine. We can have some type of bad weather, which is another one. We can have a war. We can have a natural disaster, some type of death or disease. Let's say even if you look at right now what's going on as far as with the Cyrus, as we'll call it, that's what some say. All right, curve shifts to the left. Less of both goods are being produced. All right, so now what is going to happen if one of the products here is affected, but not necessarily the other? So this is going to get kind of weird because you're going to see a kind of unique situation. So I have three different graphs that are drawn here. And if you look at the first one, we got guns here and we have butter. And you look at it right here, these points are together. I believe they call it tangent, if I recall. And then it's going to spread out. So it looks like the butter portion of the things increased, but not necessarily the guns. The guns are always staying the same, but the amount of butter has produced. So what could have caused that? So it's not only going to be guns and butter, it's going to be other examples as well. All right, let's look at the factors. So one, increased. Let's say that there is technology that now makes it to where cows are super cows. They're on steroids and are able to produce 4 times as much milk as they would have before. Okay, now think about it. If I gave you that blanket statement, super cows now are able to produce a ton more milk than what was before. Okay, let's think here. Butter is made from milk products, okay, dairy products. Yeah, all right, so that's starting to that makes sense, but dairy products have nothing to do with guns, so it's going to affect one of the two. So, thus, it increases butter, but has nothing to do with the gun aspect. All right, let's look at the second one here. All right, so now it's here. Again, the pinch point is right here, but it looks like this curve with the arrows are going to the left. The big thing is if you started here and you're here, you can see that something happened. It had to happen to decrease the amount of butter that what is being produced. So let's say that I give you a blanket statement and say mad cow disease is happening in general. Cows are dropping like flies. All right, well, let's say that bad weather has something to do with cows being fed with the corn. Okay, well, there's a trickle-down process that happens. Okay, so now you see that affects butter and not necessarily guns, which are made out of metal, okay, and machinery and so forth. So here we go. We take the curve. It doesn't affect the guns at all, but it does affect the butter. So at every amount, the amount of guns is going to stay the same, but if you can see, the amount of butter will decrease. All right, so let's take a look at this curve here. Graph C, I guess we would call it. Maybe I'll pull a Vanna White and go over this way. So you see now the butter, now the pinch is right here, the point. But now it goes this way. So it looks like, oh, the gun aspect of things has decreased. So what would be something that would decrease the production of guns, but not necessarily have to do with butter? Well, again, it's not like any type of thing that has to do with demand. That's another one that you're going to see sometimes, okay? Professors or teachers are going to try to fool you and say if there's a decrease in the demand for something. We're not talking about that. That's preference. We're talking about what would be produced. So, what would be something with guns? Let's assume that they're made out of metal, and let's just say that there is a shortage if they're looking as far as in the ground for metals to produce guns they can't find anymore. Let's say that with God, I don't even know what the hell things that you make guns out of. I'm assuming that there would be metal, so let's just stick with that, okay? So we can't find as much metal. Obviously, you're not going to be able to make as many guns. But does it have to do with the productions of butter? Not at all, okay? I don't think there's any metal or steel or iron that's in butter. All right, so you can see all these different arrays of combinations that you would have. All right, so we got it. We know the before curve. Boom, we know what it looks like. We know what an after with the effect of a shift of the curve. We know the factors that can increase the curves. We know the factors that can decrease the curves. We know that the shifts of the curve are to the right when it increases and to the left when it decreases. And then we know what would happen, the way that it's looked, the way that it's drawn, if one of the factors are affected and the other one isn't. Okay, we'll see you next time. Hope you get it. All right.